is episode 59, Story Grammar, featuring Shannon Werbeckes, Speechy Musings. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Deb.
And I'm Maria.
And welcome our... Oh my goodness, did you get lost?
I think I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, she's there. Welcome our robot guest. Did you hear that? What was that? I'm like, some sort of computer demon just sucked her out. Shannon Werbeckes. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
Now, our listeners might be more familiar with your Instagram handle, which is Speechy Musings. Yeah, and she's the brains behind all of the wonderful materials I think probably 70% of the SLP community utilizes in all of their sessions. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I have to admit, before I was like more into the speechy like Instagram community, and I just had like no Instagram for my speech life, I still like followed Shannon. I still was a Speechy Musings fan, so you're like an original person.
Yeah, you still made the cut.
You made it. She was the only cut. I didn't care as much about speech, I guess, until now, or I just didn't know, really. I've always cared about speech. I take that back. I didn't know there was a whole like bunch of people to follow and teacher pay teacher in this whole community. So
well, I'm sure when Shannon started, much smaller and less people were Instagramming their speech lives. But I do think social media has made speech pathology a way more reasonable job. Like there's a lot of unrealistic expectations within the field and a lot of responsibilities, and it could be quite chaotic. But I feel like social media has made the speech world smaller and then gave us more access to ideas and materials and all that fun stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, it's good. Before we chat too much, Maria.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for this wine.
Yeah.
Okay, so
she's so excited she drank most of it before she got here. I had to fill my cup with club soda.
You're welcome for that. Because it added a different taste. So you are welcome for that. I did do the thing that you probably shouldn't do, is bring a half empty bottle to a guest's house, but it's all right. Whatever. So we're drinking.
It was half full.
Half full. That's right. There's the optimism there.
Yeah, that's me. Optimistic.
So it's called Wild and Free Pinot Gris. And it's by Naked Winery, and we've had some of their wine before. And it has a nice little label that I wanted to read a little bit about it.
All right.
So it says, adventures await around every corner. Get swept up in the moment and make a memory you'll never forget. Embrace citrus notes as bright as the sun on your face and a finish as soft as the wind in your hair.
Oh,
there's more, but I didn't want to keep going.
So very nice. Yes. I want to be wild and free. Pinot Gris.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, they sold me,
didn't they?
With that little blurb.
And we paired it with this feta cheese because you know I'm feeling the Greek stuff because I'm still coming back from vacation.
Yeah. If anyone follows Maria on Instagram, they have seen, or even SLP's Wine and Cheese, you've seen all of Greece. I feel.
You're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Again, really.
It looked lovely. She ate dinner in the sky.
Yes,
didn't fall out because here she is. Yeah.
We have a demon in this.
There's some
recording.
Sort of. I wonder if that's gonna pop up. Do you hear that noise too?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So nobody knows what we're
talking about it.
I don't know.
We will continue to say that the feta is nice and smooth and salty. And it has a light finish, this wine, because you added some ice cubes, which I didn't know that you should do with white wine because I didn't chill it.
Well, I don't know. You're not really supposed to, but I wanted it colder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that white wine is better chilled, Shannon? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not very classy to put ice in
but I still kind of chill my red wine too. Yeah. No.
I do
have reusable
too.
ice cubes. Have you ever heard of those?
Yeah.
So they don't melt in your drink. So then I feel a little bit better about the wine.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. It doesn't water it down. I haven't thought about that's why it's beneficial. I just thought like it doesn't spill in your freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely vote drink it.
Yeah, drink it.
The Pinot Gris, wild and free.
Yeah. Shannon, what do you have?
Shannon,
I am having a hard cider. It's called Traffic Jam. You guys can see it. It's strawberry, blackberry, and raspberry in a hard cider.
Ooh.
That was my non-wine drink. I don't have any wine currently, which is like a very unusual situation in my house, but we are almost out. And then my cheese is a Bella Vitano. It's espresso. It has like coffee grounds on the outside.
Oh.
It's from my hometown where I grew up, so I had to have that one. My favorite. Yeah, I grew up in like a dairy farming town, so we're known for cheese, so I only buy cheese from there.
Oh, I want to try that cheese.
Wow, this is like
Very good.
Changing right now.
Yeah.
Cheese with coffee.
Can you order that online?
Yeah.
Maria.
Yeah, I think so. It's Sartori is the brand. You
Yeah.
can see it here.
Maybe they want to sponsor the show.
Oh yeah.
Yes, tell them.
They can send us all the cheese they like.
Maybe.
We have like 7 cheese factories. Sorry. My computer is very slow today, but we have like 7 cheese factories where I grew up, so I try to only get yummy cheese from home.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
We're gonna jealous.
We're gonna have to look into that. I don't think there's any Brooklyn cheese. There's Brooklyn pickles, Brooklyn beer. I don't know about any Brooklyn cheese.
Gotta get.
I am very intrigued by the cheese, and I'm sure there's more to learn and love about you, Shannon. So tell us a little bit more.
Oh, all right. Well, like we kind of said, Shannon Werbeckes is my full name. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I went to undergrad at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and then I moved to Virginia for grad school. I most recently worked in the schools, but I'm currently just doing Speechy Musings full-time this school year. So this is my first day not having students when my regular coworkers do.
How does that feel?
It's a bit weird. I don't know. I'm like sad right now because I like my job a lot. So it's kind of weird, but it's good. There wasn't a part-time situation at my school this year, and it's just really hard to do full-time. So I kind of was like, I guess we'll just do no time for now. We'll see.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's only 1 year, so you can always decide if like you want to do something else, but it's better to give it a shot than to not. That's what I think.
Exactly. And like, I really like the district I work for. So it was, I didn't really want to switch districts or start looking for all these other things. So I'm kind of holding out that maybe something will open up in the next year there instead of having to like start all over in a whole new district.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you one of those people who always knew they wanted to be an SLP, or did you stumble upon it while you were in school? What's your background story there?
Very stumbled upon it. An elementary ed major. And then I don't know, I worked in a daycare and had to do like a whole class, and we had to do field trips. And I realized I did not want to be in charge of like 20 children after that.
Right.
So I switched to special ed and was special ed until I think my junior year of undergrad. And then I don't even remember what happened there. I just was like looking into something more specialized beyond that, and kind of picked speech. It was like that or rehab psych I remember looking at a lot. So I kind of was just like a more individual way to work with kids. And then, I don't know, the daycare was really good. I worked in a bunch of jobs in undergrad for like, I worked at a summer camp for people with special needs, and I did like overnight camps, and I did in-home ABA therapy, and I just did like a ton of stuff that kind of got me into the world, and then kind of wanted to stick with that.
Nice. Yeah. I worked at a daycare that exposed me to related services. So that's like, I initially liked the idea of being an occupational therapist, but then didn't pursue that, but then decided I wanted to, but my school didn't have it. So I just like settled for speech. which is far more suiting for me, I think, than occupational therapy. But so it must have been fate.
Yeah, that's what I think about me.
Yeah, probably. It's fine.
I think I would really like to be an occupational therapist. I don't think I really knew what that was in undergrad, but I think that I always say that's what I would do if I wasn't a speech therapist, which is a little bit cheating, but it's a fun job.
Yeah, I feel
like
all
my best
do
friends
a lot
are
of
like
stuff.
OT.
Right. Yeah, I know some OTs and I do a lot of like OT stuff, I feel like. So it's not unfamiliar.
Yeah, same here.
For sure.
So if you could pick, what would you say is one of your areas of passion, or what are you passionate about within speech pathology?
Yeah, I feel like my favorite part of speech therapy so far has been AAC.
Okay.
I like I like the more like severe end. Sometimes kids with like medical needs, more medically fragile kids I've enjoyed working with. A lot of autism I enjoy. Yeah, I would say mostly like AAC probably though.
Mm-hmm. So what led you to start Speechy Musings? Was it that you were like making your own materials for your students, or like how did that idea come about?
Sorry, I think you froze there, but
okay. Yes. I was like, did she not want to answer my question? Was this too personal?
No, I'm avoiding that question.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll I started. I moved to. Don't ask me that one. No.
Yeah.
I moved to Virginia for grad school, and I'd actually worked in a speech therapy clinic before this in undergrad, and I graduated a semester early and then worked there full time, just as an assistant. And my boss there was always telling me, start a blog. And I don't know what, I just was not excited about that at that time. And then moved away, and I don't know, all my friends were going home for holidays and long weekends, and I'm like so stranded. I couldn't go anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just start a blog, just something to do. And then, I don't know, I think my first month I maybe made 2 posts. Then my second month I put some freebies online, and then I think I must have had 1 product for sale, and then I made like $5 my first month. And I'm like, well, this is awesome. When you're in grad school, you can get like a Starbucks drink out of it. And then I kind of just got really, really into it in grad school, and then never looked back.
Wow. So it started from grad schools. So that really shows how much like dedication and time it takes to have your business, I guess you could call it, right? Or your brand. I don't know. How do you like to refer to it?
Yeah.
That's great. That takes a lot of motivation. Like because as
I have no
grad
idea.
student,
I have all of them.
Because as a grad student, I'm like, because that's all extra on top of all the responsibilities you had to have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm kind of a I don't know, workhorse is the right word, but I I really like working.
I hear you.
So I actually had an assistantship and worked full time almost all the way through undergrad. So I think I've always just been used to like working and doing it. So it kind of it fit in. And I think it was easiest actually in grad school because that's all your brain thinks about. So like, there was no work-life separation. Like it was just speech all the time. So worked out.
So you were already in that mindset. So you're like, hey, might as well put this online, I get that.
I'm like dreaming about it and sleeping about it. It's like all you do. So yeah.
Right. Deb and I have, we always like try to remember this quote that it's, if you're not embarrassed by your first piece of work, you started too late. So like if you ever looked back to, let's say, are you embarrassed by it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I love that quote. I agree with that quote. Oh, I'm mortified. I actually I go through and I delete old blog posts. I mean, everything that I started out with has been deleted. Oh, you don't even want to, I mean, it's out. I have it. It exists so I can see where I've come from, but it's like, no one should ever download it. No one should definitely pay dollars for it. I mean, it's like definitely not high quality. No, it's, I totally agree with that.
I wonder what it is. Is it in your Dropbox account? This new we were just talking about?
Deep in the Dropbox. It's probably in my old laptop that I can't turn on anymore.
Oh man, I would be so curious to see like what you did. If you want to like indulge just a little, if you remember anything about it. I don't know.
I don't even remember. I remember like I can't even think of the movie, but it has Mike Wazowski in it. What's that? Like Monsters Inc. My husband just shouts in from the back.
Oh,
Monsters
Inc.
Thank you, like husband. Had like Monsters Inc. memes and quotes. Like it was really embarrassing stuff on there at first. I mean, it was really old.
I think
and my covers were like horrible. And it was good. It was good stuff.
This episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese is brought to you by Fusion Web Clinic. It's an all-in-one practice management software designed specifically for pediatric speech therapists, physical therapists, and occupational therapists who need to save time and streamline their practice. With unlimited customer support, free onboarding, and an ever-growing set of features, thousands of therapists across the country use Fusion every day to treat their kiddos. To learn more and check out Fusion's library of free resources, visit them online at www.fusionwebclinic.com/cheese. And if you sign up for a free demo of the software, mention that SLP's Wine and Cheese podcast to receive a $50 credit off your first month of Fusion. Thank you so much for listening to SLP's Wine and Cheese. If you enjoy the show, please give us 5 stars on iTunes and write a review. We read all of them and very much appreciate it. Also, we would appreciate your support by checking us out on Patreon. Our website is www.patreon.com/SLP's Wine and Cheese. All patrons get access to a ton of bonus content. So check it out. Now, back to the show.
You're back. We just ended. Great. We paused for our break.
Oh. My friend dropped off his dog and she just peed right on the rug immediately. Right away. No. Right away.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Great.
So I was like, so story grammar seems to be a pretty useful tool within the educational setting. I feel like when I was growing up, we would have like story maps, and that was very difficult for me to kind of like understand and use. And Maria brought up earlier how when we were in school, we did like the who, what, where, when, why, and how type thing. But my school doesn't really do things that way. Mm-hmm. My school does genre, character motivation, problem, solution, and lesson learned. And I feel like that's a good model. And I've used Shannon's stories that she's written to help work on those things. What do you feel like you use for story grammars?
I use, story grammar marker, which is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about story grammar.
Yeah, they're similar.
Yes, very similar. So more like story grammar marker, but since they're similar, I'm sure there's going to be some overlap with that. But yeah, why don't you tell us what story grammar is?
Yeah, so I work my last 3 years I worked at a middle school, and so I'm going to guess about 80% of my therapy is push-in, so all in gen ed classrooms. Mm-hmm. So I found out, like Deb said, that story grammar is just a really good, way to, it's in our wheelhouse. It's a speech and language thing. I feel that I'm providing kind of a specialty service, but it's also really related to the curriculum and what my kids are doing in the classroom. So if you're unfamiliar with story grammar, it's just in general, just the parts of a story. So the most common parts would be like character, setting, problem, and solution, but there's also a ton of them. Deb just mentioned some of them, but you can have like character internal response, or a character's plans, or a character's the lift off of the story, like how it starts, or so it's all these kind of building blocks of stories. And there's people who have different curriculums, have different names for all the different parts and all of that, but it kind of just describes just general parts of the story.
Right. So instead of just providing a student with a giant story who already has issues with language comprehension in terms of like written and spoken language, They already struggle with that aspect of comprehension. To just give them a whole story is rather daunting. But this is kind of like a map that allows that child to break down the story into more tangible sections and then make the next story more attainable because they've done it before.
And also from like the speech and language part is
Exactly.
helps with narrative development. So that when you ask, because this is how we look at it with the students that I work with that have like complex communication needs, that, and a lot of parents actually will say like, you know, I just want them to be able to tell me like, what did they do in school today? You know, so like narratives are really where a lot of students are having a lot of difficulty. So the story grammar will help them to kind of like organize and categorize and like retell a story. So it's helping obviously with like, because there's the right macro structure and the micro structure of the story, which I don't know how crazy we want to get into that, but
yeah, I feel like, so I've been using like easy stories with my students who have AAC. So I just started in a new school with a new population. For the most part, all of my kids have been gen ed up until this point. I've had children with complex communication needs, but I've usually seen them after school or in the private practice, but I haven't been in that school setting. So this is my first time there. And I've been using just the F&P testing, like those like letter stories, to use with the AAC to answer text-based WH questions based on the story grammar elements. So like, who are the characters? Like the mouse, the dog, and the frog. And what is their motivation? They're hot, so they want to go in the pool.
right.
And then what's the problem? Too many of them are in the pool and they can't all fit. And then the solution was there wasn't one because the pool broke. and then, so like sometimes there isn't always an answer to every element in the story grammar. And I think that, you know, as providers, we just need to be cognitively flexible and just be like, oh, well, the story doesn't have that. Or maybe you have to infer based on the context of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lesson learned is, you know, you can't have too many animals jumping in a pool because it'll break.
Yep. Good lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
Good tip. Good
tip. That's for my tips and tricks segment.
Right. So Shannon wanted to talk about the story grammar period, and I guess what she has out there. Wanted to follow along. If you
I have it too. I use it all the time.
Okay.
Shannon, you wrote the stories, right?
Right. Maybe Shannon wants to tell her story.
Sorry. Maria thinks I'm stepping on your toes, Shannon. Go ahead and talk.
Oh, you're just fine. I don't know. Do you want me to describe the whole packet? Yeah. So what I created in general has like 3 levels. And I kind of explain how I use each of the levels in it. But level 1 is just like the visuals. So you're just basically reading books, and I get my students familiar with like what is, I do a lot of like sorting at this time, or I just use like whatever they're already doing in class. Like I said, I'm almost always in their classrooms, so I don't even have to necessarily come with stories because they have all their stuff in their room.
Right.
But I'm just like acquainting them with the vocabulary so that they're like, you know, when I say you need to add a character to your story, that they actually know what a character is. And then, level 2, I try to work on like how you just mentioned, like macro structure. So like the overall structure of stories. And we use like the narrative plot diagram a lot in my schools about like, you know, the exposition, the climax, all that.
The rising action.
I have them like, exactly. So I have them like plant all these story grammar parts. Like, where do you normally hear about the character, you know? And then we talk about like what part of the story kind of all of these align with. And then also in that section, I also do a lot with transition words. My students are also doing a lot of writing, obviously, in the upper grades. So we're working on like, what part of the story do you hear or read the word last, or in summary, that's at the end. So we're working on like when to use different transition words, and then again, correlating that with all like the story grammar parts. Because a lot of them are pretty consistent with, you know, the parts of the story, you use them, and then the story grammar that goes along with those parts. And then the last level is just like literally reading stories and me being like, okay, tell me what the liftoff is, or tell me what the problem is, and extrapolating more from that. Separately, outside of the packet, then beyond that, I move on to like telling stories with all of those parts. The packet that I made, I was only like working on identifying kind of the comprehension part, like isolating out all those pieces. But then, like, I think Maria talked about this a little bit too, like telling narratives is a hugely functional thing for like all of our kids. So then this just like works its way super well into like functionally telling narratives and writing. My kids have to write like 1 million stories every school year. So it's like when I'm editing it with them and I'm like, I don't just need to keep telling them what to do. We can like look at all the visuals and say like, what parts are you missing? Like, let's go through and identify them in your own writing, or add in a lift off because it doesn't have a very exciting beginning, for example. So it's just a nice framework for helping students understand like what's a complete story, what details can they add, and then helping them understand stories too. They're not just like hearing random facts and trying to like memorize them. They're seeing it as like a cohesive whole. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like we can all agree that there's so much you could do with story grammar, and like in terms of like just the reading and the writing, it's really will target all areas of communication of all of language, reading, writing, speaking,
understanding
and
listening.
I always forget that one.
Oh, yeah.
And then of course even speech, if you have students with like fluency or articulation, phonology, whatever. So
exactly,
it really just hit everything, you know. So it's great. I think even for groups, like in my school, we would pull kids and maybe even like combine certain kids with the other speech therapists, and we would work together to go through the whole story. Like, okay, who are the characters, and break down the story.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you stick with like one story? You know, like how much time do you spend on a story? I'm just wondering. You're in the general.
Like if I'm just reading like one of my 1-page stories that's like in the packet, something like short 1 page, that I'll probably do that in maybe 2 sessions. But usually when I do story grammar, I'm doing it with chapter books, like from their classroom or their leveled reading texts that they're reading, which are pretty long. So, I mean, then we can do the same book for like a quarter, like a long months. And I photocopy parts out of the book and we figure out like where this is all, you know. And that's what you said too. The great thing about stories to me is it's like really no prep. Like all I need to do is familiarize myself with all these story grammar parts, and then we're working on adding them, finding them, revising them. Most of my students have grammar and vocabulary goals, so all of those are tied in. How do you combine sentences? How do you edit all of this? And so it makes it really easy that way too.
So I feel like it's very interesting that you said the majority of your sessions, 80%, were push-in.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I changed school, I think probably 70%, so just short of yours, are all push-in. And when I mentioned that on my Instagram, I got so many questions. So I know you said you kind of broke it down earlier, but how would you utilize this in a push-in session with a variety of kids that you are in a group with a bunch of different goals and using the teacher's materials?
Yeah. So, well, first I should like maybe give some background on my program, because I think my school is really unique because I also get a million questions every time I talk about inclusion. My whole like school, like the whole district, the state that I'm in really pushes inclusion. So we don't have like separated schools for any students. So, and we do have like some separate classes, but not like what I hear about in other states. Like they might get 45 minutes of reading separated that's intensive, and then they're back in their classroom. Mm-hmm. So that's like pretty much the model. So all classes are co-taught with a special education teacher if they have special education students in them. Mm-hmm. So there's already 2 teachers and paras, and then me when I push in. So I don't do like what a lot of speech therapists, I don't know, say you should do for inclusion. I don't run like traditional small group. I don't plan lessons. I don't do, any of that type of thing. I tend to just do like really, really support work. So a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to do till I show up. So that's like part of the reason also why Story Grammar was like a priority for me to make a full-fledged resource, was because this is something I can show up with and like pretty much on the fly target anything. So my literacy classes that I push into are about an hour and a half long. I don't stay the whole time, but they're structured in that the first 45 is reading, the second 45 is writing. They typically, during reading, they do a read aloud of a chapter book, the whole class, they ask questions and all of that. So I try not to push in during that time, because honestly, I feel like a parakeet on a kid's shoulder, just like asking them questions while they're trying to listen. But, you know, if I have to, then I'll have them like fill out a graphic organizer while they're listening, or I'll even just like stick the visuals in their lap and have them like flip to the one that they're talking about at that moment or whatever. But in general, I try to push in during the writing, because it's a little bit more collaborative. The classroom's like a little bit more on the move. They're separate groups and stuff. So during the writing, you know, they do different units that are all kind of consistent year to year. But if they're working on like the narrative unit, I'll literally sit down with all these visuals and just give them, and I take part in the whole writing process. So during the brainstorming, I'll grab the graphic organizer and we think about like all the story grammar elements and how we can brainstorm our story. What parts do we want to put into it? So, you know, my students get really good support in the classroom from their teachers, but a lot of the times their like graphic organizers are really open-ended. Like, it's like, what are you going to write at the beginning? What's your second topic sentence going to be? And they like don't really know how to organize what they have in their heads. So we'll just do like a graphic organizer and do it that part. Sometimes, you know, I take part in like the editing process. So then we're working a lot on combining sentences. So I show up with like, I have a ring of visuals that I bring, and we just kind of, I don't know, I'm really good at working on the fly. I usually just touch base with the special ed teacher before I get started. She'll tell me like so-and-so and so-and-so really are like not putting any more details in and say it's done. And so I'll be like, okay, you know, let's like do a self-assessment and do that. Or yeah, it's all kind of, it's very on the fly, but that's why I think I like skills like story grammar, because I can pretty much just show up with some graphic organizers and visuals and we just make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that, because I do the same thing. I'm new to the school, like I mentioned, but I just kind of hung back in the beginning to see like the rhythm of the classroom and listen to the vocabulary that they use, because like you mentioned, like each school calls each thing something a little bit different, and they like focus on like different things more specifically than others. So I wanted to make sure like I was familiar with what the child was expected to do, and then while I'm pushing in, I just I might be a parakeet on their shoulder, just like reminding them to maintain attention to the task and to go from one question to the next without taking a break. And I do a lot of sounding out loud because lots of my students, they struggle with phonemic awareness. So even though they might like understand who's the character and what their motivation is, they might struggle to spell some of those things, and that might be a roadblock for them. So I help them push through that and move on to the next thing. I wanted to talk about being a glorified tutor, whatever somebody wrote on my Instagram. What did you, Maria was making a face like she wanted.
Glorified para. That's what I get a lot.
Something like that. I mean, at least I think it's funny when people put us down in a way. We're always at least glorified.
I like glorified parakeet.
Yeah, I'm a glorified. I'm a parakeet in all of its glory.
Shannon, I'm like you too. I walk into the classroom with my visuals, and the classroom staff and the students, they love it. You know, I walk around with the necklace. Yep. I'm all about the visuals. And you know what? That's what I bring to the table.
This sounds bad, but I don't mean it in a bad way, but a lot of times I'm an extra set of hands. You know, these classrooms, it can be kind of short-staffed, and all the kids with all their different needs, a lot of times you can say, well, I'm just a glorified para, but there isn't someone working with that kid if I'm not there. So, you know, they can't be in all places with all the kids all the time. And for certainly don't have the knowledge that I have of, you know, how to adjust the language expectations and prompt and support through some of these really, I mean, I'm shocked at what 5th, 6th, and 7th graders are working on. It's really intense.
I mean, there was a whole TV show about it. And I'm not smarter than a 5th grader.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But so, I think Shannon, you're working on like something that's like so functional and like how, like, of course I do both like push in and pull outs, and we've done story grammar marker. We did it on the whole movie Aladdin, because at the end of the year we put on the show Aladdin. So it was like we added that drama element and that recalling the social skills. So that was like a whole year-long project. That's why I understand when you're like, oh, we do it for a whole quarter. But you're working in the classroom and you're working on something like so functional and something that you can, how do you separate that from speech? You know, it's like what I said, all the parts of language. So it would make sense for you to push in during reading and writing. It's not like you're trying to like, you know, grasp at shoestrings, like, oh, okay, I'll push in during math. You know, let's put 4 on top of 5. Like we're working on prepositions. Like, I don't know, that might be a far stretch, but you are incorporating speech and language and already
I push into math.
Well, I mean, good for you. That takes a little extra planning and
it does
thought process than like, okay, we're gonna read. Like,
Shannon's
like ready.
I haven't planned for it. But like I just, because everything, I don't know, I just work on them describing what they did in words. So like, why is it 10 times 3? Because there's like 3 times as many of this or something like that. Like just having them explain it in words.
You could totally still push in math because because the children or the students have a hard time with like greater, more than, less than, the vocabulary.
No gaps when you're measuring or like putting centimeters or like end to end. But they're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
End to end, like no gaps.
Yeah.
This person, they're looking at me like I have 10 heads. Because it's like everything is vocabulary, when it comes down to it. So like whether it's story grammar or math, I just want to get rid of this idea of people being like glorified tutor, glorified para, glorified whatever, because there are definitely things that I say and do that are very effective for me and probably other people if they copied me than somebody who doesn't have my background and experience. Like I am able to model something in a way that I can get a child to respond and say it back to me in a faster way, and then I have them repeat it again so that I know that they know. And then in that way we worked on syntax because we had like a grammatically correct sentence or
following a model,
or like, you know, auditory memory because I gave them a simple sentence to recall, something like that. So I don't see how, when people ask me how I work speech into it, I don't know how you detach speech from it.
Right, that's what I mean too. I mean, of course, math is still, I feel like I'm not anti-math. I'm just mad in terms of like how you were saying, like you push in during writing. Like that's an excellent time to push in. So I don't look at it as like, oh, you're a glorified parakeet. You know, you're using a great time to incorporate speech and language, you know? That's what I think.
And I do push into everything.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Like I do social studies, science, math. That's my 5th grade schedule. Then I have a different 6th grade schedule. But I agree. It's like, I don't know how you take the speech and language out of anything. And I think that like paras and teachers like in my school, they learn so much from me being there, and I'll come in and they have really good feedback on like, oh, this graphic organizer didn't work for him because he was confused about these parts, and they're trying new things, and they're doing, you know, they're carrying over what I'm doing, and you know, all the time. My teachers are like, the teachers that I work with are just like speech therapists, you know, mini-me's. They're amazing because I'm in there all the time. And so they start to like adapt all like the social thinking vocabulary I use. And like even my math teachers have learned a lot on, so in middle school, our math curriculum that we use is all small groups based. So they're literally doing story problems in small groups like the entire time. So I found that it's actually really good to push into because first off, my kids with regulation issues struggle doing small group based work. And then my students that are having language difficulties, it's like they don't understand what their group mates are saying. They don't understand the word problems. It's like really, really challenging. So yeah, I have a hard time with that glorified para thing because I think I can do the same thing as a para, but with specialized knowledge, and it makes me different and important to the school functioning, you know, just the same.
Right, and you contribute to that para's ability to help that child because you're providing insight and strategies and another set of eyes and an idea. So, I mean, it would it wouldn't, although I love speech pathology, it wouldn't be beneficial for us to spend all day with one kid. It'd be, so it's not like we would be better off in that position or by any means. I think it's our job to pass on strategies to other people, because like we need to promote carryover in speech pathology. It's not just about what you do in your little room. But I am lucky. My room's close to all the classrooms. So if somebody is really struggling with the writing, I take them out, because I'm loud and now I'm like messing everybody else up. But I still consider it pushing, because I'm working on what they're working on, and I'm just going somewhere where like I'm not going to disturb people.
Mm-hmm. Technically, that's a pullout.
Yeah.
Just saying. Also, research shows that like twice a week, 30 minutes, or 3 times a week, 30 minutes, like in a child's life out of 24 hours a day is not really as effective. So in terms of the research, you need to train everyone and the carryover, because that's where you'll see the most progress.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really, I mean, so my school had this all set up when I started. So it's not like I was converted to this inclusion model. I kind of just like started at this job. This is what I did. And like Deb said, I observed a long time and kind of just like did what felt best. But I feel like after doing this, I don't really want to go back to the other way. I guess it feels like I'm spinning my wheels a lot less. So, there's pretty much like everything I do has a next step, or like, it's related to something in the classroom, or someone else is going to keep trying this, or, it's not just like, we worked on isolated synonyms and antonyms for 30 minutes, and then I sent them back to class and no one knows what we did or how to use it. It feels like a lot more integrated. And obviously this isn't a middle school too, where everything's kind of at this upper level too. But yeah, my school, or my room, is like so far away. I can't even describe. Some days I walk like 7 or 8 miles. So it's like, because middle school is it's massive. So I don't ever go to my room, but we go to like conference rooms, or we'll just like lay in, like we have a common area between all the rooms. So I do the same thing, Deb, where I'll pull out and we'll just do the work. But then, usually I have like half the class ends up coming out with me too, because they're not understanding and they want all that help too. So it's like, yeah,
you have me now too, miss. You have me now too.
Oh,
miss.
yeah.
And I'm like, no, I do not.
Yeah. And now I moved to a school that has smaller classrooms too, so it's like everyone can touch me at the same time. I'm like, get out. No,
like, drive me nuts. Yeah,
I'm not even.
No.
Well, I have the whole school actually, because my school's so small. I think it's like 50 kids, but we're like integrated, like you said. We're in the same school. It's just we're like a seamless school, kind of. There's just like classes within the school that are more special needs, but everyone like has specials and lunch together, and like everyone's like integrated, but then just smaller groups for all the core stuff.
Nice.
I think that's great.
It is. And another benefit to me is like when I'm in the classroom, like you said, the kids like want to be around you, and I mean, even annoyingly so, they're like all touching you and everything. But the best thing is like they don't really see me as like some sort of like, I don't know, weird person, or there's not like the huge stigma of like kids coming and working with me. Like in general, like a lot of the kids are jealous and like want to hang out. So it, I think it eliminates a lot of my kids being like, wah, speech, because I'm just like there all the time and no one really knows who I am aside from any of the other teachers floating in and out of the rooms. So kind of is nice that way too.
Right. I never had that like ostracized mentality that I hear about sometimes on social media, where people are like, so-and-so feels stigmatized by coming to speech. So I don't want to decorate my door, and I feel weird pulling out. Like, I haven't had that experience. For the most part, everyone wants to hang out with me.
Same. I mean, who doesn't want to leave class?
I know.
Thinking about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
They're like, they're like, take me with you. Yeah. I think I've seen
I'm a very hot commodity.
In Toy Story. The
claw.
Like the claw. Like,
the speech pathologist is the claw.
Like, all just waiting who's going to get picked.
Yes.
So.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
We did that was a tremendous amount of information, and I hope that we like left everyone with the idea of that push-in is way more tangible than you think. And also it's less like stress-inducing because you don't have to do a tremendous amount of prep. And I feel like my last thing is that like the most popular speech pathology goal is to answer a variety of WH questions. And in what other capacity do you answer questions than when you've heard information told to you and then you have to answer questions about it?
And that includes like a movie or even short clips. There's just so many things you could do with
which are stories.
Story grammar. Right. Yeah.
All stories.
Multiple forms.
Yeah.
Even some podcasts have stories that you could like break down.
Oh, I like Story Pirates if anyone wants to. It's a whole nother thing. That
whole other segment.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood that you should still collaborate with math.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still panic every time before. I'm like, well, what if I don't know? Because I might not.
Right. That's my point. Like math is might take a little extra creativity. Not that pushing in during writing is not, you don't require creativity. So
no, I mean, I might not understand math.
Right. Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
This is how
yeah. I don't have
to. This is how I think of it. I just remind myself that I'm as lost as my kids are in there. I mean, really, and I actually was very good at math in school. Like, I feel like math was a big strength of mine, but like they teach math in a whole different way now where I'm just like, I literally don't understand. And I can solve the problem, but not in any way that they're supposed to, how they're supposed to do it. But I model really good self-advocacy strategies. So I literally will be the person with like raising my hand in the class. And I'm like, I don't understand, can you tell me more about this part? Or my kids will never go up and ask, questions to the teacher. So I'm like, well, I'll go with you because I don't know either. And then I feel like it kind of normalizes this, like, just like advocating for yourself. Like, I just have no idea. And like, I'm a smart person and I'm, here and I'm listening and I was trying and I still have no idea. So it's just like cool to go up and just say like, I don't know. And a lot of my kids go up and they'd like, they get like frustrated and they're not good at even explaining what they don't understand. So I can model good, like, I understood how we got this first answer, but I don't understand where this number came from. Like language like that, it's like really important. So I always say if I have no idea, then, I mean, if I can't get it, the kid's probably not getting it. So then we just really model those self-advocacy strategies.
Right. Yeah. We're just learning together.
Which really is social skills too, So breaking down a communication, well, I can't talk today. I feel like, I don't know.
Just breaking down all of the communication needs. What are you talking about?
Repairing a communication breakdown.
Ah, okay.
Right.
I didn't know where you were.
There you go.
Breakdown. Talking about
communication breakdown.
All right. No idea where that came from.
Yeah. So I think it's time for tips and tricks.
Yes.
I think this was a whole tips and tricks packed episode.
It was. I'm gonna switch up my tip or trick though. I mean. I was going to mention something else, but now I feel like it's cheating, about my tips or trick. But I'm going to go for it, Rules were made to be broken.
Right.
That's what I think.
I don't even think we have any tip or trick rules.
That's true. Okay. So I'm going to give a shout out for my tip or trick. My tip or trick is to go to this Instagram account, and it's at OIC Cambodia, and we could tag them in the show notes. And they were brought to me. This was brought recently to my attention on September 19th. This girl Katie, or Katia maybe, she's teaming up with this organization, and that the organization is going to bring speech therapy to Cambodia, which is a country that currently does not have speech therapy, and they really need your support. So that is my tip. My tip is to support at OIC Cambodia on Instagram. Check them out.
That's good.
Thank you.
And my tip is to since we're breaking rules here, if you're thinking to yourself that push-in therapy is very daunting and overwhelming, then that says to me you're afraid of something that hasn't even happened yet. So you're having anxiety over a situation where you're just there to contribute and assist. So you have a master's degree, or at the very least, you have a bachelor's degree. And so you've been through school before. You've definitely been challenged in school before. So you can relate to this person. Just go in there, and before you get into a panic about what you are going to have to do, just see what you can do when you're there. Just listen and contribute. And that's my tip or trick.
I'm going to add to that. I'm going to say take notes. Go in there with notes.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, don't just be chilling in the back like, hey, I'm here. You know, jot some stuff down. Even if it's like, I'm thirsty. Next time,
bring water.
Some water.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. Take notes. I literally will sit in the back. The first month I did push-in, I just wrote, but I'm writing vocabulary I see in the room, the names of different things that like the summary of the storybook, units I should do next time. I literally will jot down notes of what my students are doing, so I can I like to call my students out on things. So I'll be like, you know, you twiddled your pencil for 30 minutes of the reading class. I wrote it down. You can read what you did.
Right. Yeah. I'm always like,
can
read.
A lot like me.
So I like middle school. I'm like, there's no nonsense. I'm just like, what are you doing? This needs to be done.
Yeah. I always write down like, can hold a pencil, cannot hold a pencil, can read, struggling to read. like that's because I don't know. Yeah. And they also, like, in my school, they don't do things like, they do things in like a web. So I wouldn't have known that if I just started pulling kids out all the time. I wouldn't have been teaching it that way. So yeah. And what's your tip or trick, Shannon?
Well, I'll stick to story grammar. Okay. And I would say, you know, you can always, one of my favorite things to do that is no prep and doesn't take anything is just to photocopy books. So if you're using picture books, photocopy the pages. And if you're using, for my experience, I'm like doing chapter books, and then cut the pages apart, the photocopied pages, obviously, and then have each kid get a slip of it or a piece of it and have to tell you what story grammar parts their information is in their part, and then tell you why, because a lot of them have multiple, things. So like one sentence can have like character and a feeling and a solution or something like that. So, but then they have to tell me all of it and why they think that. But that's been really easy. I can pretty much do that on the fly with anything.
Nice.
I like that.
And that's like a reverse story grammar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
a little more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like no one really gets like super overwhelmed by it. Cause I'm just like, throw out a part, see if you can find it. And almost always like my kids are like, there's a character. And I'm like, great, where is it? And they're like, Susan. Okay, move on to the next kid. You did it. It's not like too demanding or
Sounds like a good warm-up activity too. Just like, let's get
exactly.
Talk about the different
or just like
grammar.
Yeah, and just like get them participating. I feel like that's like half the battle in middle schools. Just like, they're used to not knowing what's going on, and they're used to like not, participating or just like work being too hard. So then when it's actually at their level, half the time they're like, I can't do it. And I'm like, well, maybe if you just tried for 4 seconds, you could do it. And then this is a good activity to be like, oh, you get it. You did it. You like can totally read and understand and do this. So then it's like get a little confidence boost in there too.
Yeah, that's huge. Confidence boosts, middle school. Yeah, those two go together. Like wine and cheese.
Right. Confidence boosts in middle school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Middle school's all about like, that's, I feel like that's such a critical time when like their self-confidence can really drive how they're going to go in all aspects of their lives.
Yeah. That's why I never worked in middle school. The kids were the meanest to me when I was in middle school. I'm like, I hate this age. I don't want to work there.
I like the middle school kids.
Well, when I was in middle school,
they're nasty to me, but
okay.
So I'm like, I never was like, I don't need to go there. There's too many like borderline hormonal things happening.
Too much.
Too much is happening.
It's a lot. There's a lot happening, and like they're really nasty to me sometimes. But I don't know. I'm like the personality where I get like I find humor out of it. Like some of the insults, like I could tell you them now, and they actually really make me laugh. They're really the things middle schoolers come up with. I'm like, that's actually so funny.
Mike just busted in through the back door and scared the crap out of me and Maria. We're like, that's it. An intruder is here.
I wasn't that scary.
I was horrified. I had no idea that. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a lovely episode. Oh, we need a quote.
Shannon is going to leave us off with a quote or mantra. Mike Seaton.
All right.
I brought. I can't talk today. I'm still jet lagged, I think. Brought. Yes. So anyway, Shannon, going back to you, any quote that you would like to leave the audience with?
I think my favorite one that I always go back to is this too shall pass. I like it for good things, bad things. Beginning of the school year, sitting awkwardly in the back of the classroom doing push-in and you don't know how. This too shall pass. It'll be over. Take it in. Enjoy it while you can.
Sorry, Deb was talking in my ear, and then I have auditory. So this too shall pass for positive and for negative things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that one because it shows, right? That your favorite poem, "Nothing Gold Can Stay." Right. It's true.
Yeah.
So just stay in the moment. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Doing,
yeah. If anything is still tricky, it's all going to be tricky for a while. Exactly. It'll go away. Yeah.
But anyway, this has been another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Maria.
I'm Deb. And then who else joined us? Shannon.
I'm Shannon.
Good night, Shannon.
Good night, Shannon.
Here I am.
It's been a long day. How was your cider beer, by the way? Did you vote drink it or sink it? The audience wants to know the suspense.
It's 90% gone.
Good. So then drink it.
Yeah, she voted drink.
Delicious. Yes. Yeah, I've had a few. I'm trying to go off gluten, so I'm drinking cider instead of beer. So it's a new life period for me.
Oh, nice. Remember we talked about that at Asha. You talked to me about your allergies and stuff.
Are you going to Asha this year?
It happened.
Are you going to Asha this year?
I am. Are you guys?
Yes, I believe so.
Are you guys?
We haven't bought any tickets, but we haven't decided. We'll figure it out. It will keep everyone posted.
Keep everybody on their toes at all times.
Especially me. I'm constantly on the edge of my own seat.
Anyway. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.